a conductive wire, and you were so electric. I had no say when you came so near, and just passed right through me.
Hey everyone, welcome to Geekdom is back, as is Tim Matthews. I'm your host, Deanna Chapman, and today we are talking all about Toy Story 3. Tim, I had not seen this one. It was the only one that I had not seen of the three we are discussing so far, while the fourth one is out in theaters, but I don't know why I didn't see it. You know, it was just one of those things where I guess it came out so much later because it came out in 2010 versus only a few years after Toy Story 2, to where I just maybe either wasn't as interested at the time or what. I'm not really sure what my deal was, but I did not go see this. Did you go see this in theaters?
So I was trying to think of that. I don't think I saw this one in theaters. I saw it relatively close to the time that like it came out because everyone was talking about it. So I was like, oh, all right, I'll watch it. But I'm pretty positive I did not actually catch this one in theaters. Which I now, like, you know, after having seen it and seeing, you know, how good it is and knowing that I saw the first two in theaters, I'm like, well, I kind of screwed that up not seeing this one in theaters, and I'll end up seeing the fourth one. But it's like if you buy like the first, second, and fourth, you know, line in like a graphic novel, and then you know you don't really want to start because you don't have the third one. I feel like I have something missing from my collection now, that having not seen it in theaters.
Yeah, it's funny that you make the graphic novel comparison because I've been collecting the trades for Chew, but I have like 1, 3, 4, 5, and 7 or something like that.
Oh, man.
1, 3, 4, and 7 maybe. And it's like, okay, well, I can't start reading it until I at least get the second one. And then I can at least get, you know, like 4 trades in. And I totally know what you mean, because there was no way that I was going to go see Toy Story 4 in theaters without having seen Toy Story 3 at all.
Absolutely,
you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, you know, Tim wants to discuss all of these, so I will remedy this. And, you know, Toy Story 4 has been out for a few weeks now by the time everyone is listening to this. So hopefully you have seen 1, 2, and 3. Well, especially 3 because we're talking about it today. But, you know, Toy Story 3 is another one that adds more new characters. And in a way, this one adds the most toys we've seen in any of the movies so far. And obviously I can't speak to Toy Story 4 just yet, but there are a lot of toys in here just because of the scenario that Andy's toys are put in. And I think it goes to show in not only the visuals, but the budget and everything, the way this movie just came together. It was so much bigger than the two that came before it, but it still works because they didn't try to overdo it.
Absolutely. And the situation, like you said, it makes total sense of having more characters in this one. And because of that, it feels natural to get all these new characters. It doesn't feel like they're just shoehorning characters in because they don't have anything to say with the original characters that they have. They actually have quite a bit to say with the characters that we have, but they're using these additional ones to build upon those roles.
And most of the characters that are new in this aren't really important. You see a lot of toys, but there's only a handful, again, that you really need to pay attention to. And one of the main ones is Lotso, who is one of those big purple Care Bears, if I'm not mistaken.
He feels like a Care Bear.
And then you have Ken. So, you know, Barbie and Ken, they introduced Barbie in a previous movie. So now they have Ken to go with it. And, you know, you just have the chatter telephone, which doesn't play a super, super huge role, but is important to the story. You have Mr. Prickle Pants because
oh my God,
why not?
He is the best. Yeah.
And, you know, you just have these other characters like Bookworm. They pop up a few times and then they're gone because their purpose has been served and we don't really need them around. You have Peas in a Pod, you know, you have Dolly, Twitch, Stretch. You have so many new ones, but at the same time, not all of them need to be ones that are necessarily crucial to the story or super memorable. And I think Lotso is really the main character that is added.
Yeah.
That really just drives the story because, we can talk about the story here now since, there's just too many new characters to run down all of them without talking about the story. And
oh yeah,
with Lotso, basically what happens is Andy's toys end up in a donation box because Andy is heading off to college and he is not going to be taking his toys with them. I don't know anyone who really takes toys with them to college, but unless it's like electronics or not toys from your childhood. And they end up in this donation box that his mom takes to like the daycare center that it seems like him and his sister used to go to at one point because she knows the lady working there and hadn't seen the daughter in a while. So there's some connection with that daycare center with Andy's family.
Yeah, I think the daughter at least had to have gone there, and that would explain why she would know Andy. But I suppose Andy could have as well, but I don't know, it's a cartoon. Sometimes it's hard to see how old somebody is, but she doesn't seem that old. Yeah, no, because she definitely is like, oh, how are your kids? Not kids anymore,
Yeah. Yeah, so there's clearly this connection there, and that's why she's taking the toys for donation there. So you have this scenario where the toys are going to another quote unquote home, and they think it's going to be so great, and Woody's the only one who is sort of against leaving Andy. And you just have this tension between Woody and everyone else, which seems to be a running theme in these. It's always Woody's fault. And eventually, in the end, Woody typically ends up being right about the situation. And that's the case in this one, too. And I think it's just funny how they keep putting Woody in this scenario. And it's different each time.
You'd think by this time they'd be like, you know what? Like, maybe just
right.
maybe we should listen to Woody. He's got a decent track record with this, and we keep messing things up.
Right.
And then Mr. Potato Head has to apologize every time about being a jerk.
Yeah, and so they go to this daycare center thinking everything is going to be great. They meet the other toys, especially Lotso, who's sort of the head toy in charge, if you will, the CEO of the toys or whatever you want to call him. And they see the room that those toys are in and they think everything's going to be great. But then they go into the room. I believe it's called the Caterpillar Room or something. And it's all of the younger kids. And they are just maniacs with these toys.
Oh, it's so
They're
terrible.
Throwing them, ripping limbs off, coloring on them, and doing everything you can imagine that you wouldn't want done to a toy.
I think Jessie gets dipped into paint.
Yeah. Yeah, they're painting with the toys and it's just complete chaos. And by the end of the first day, the toys are like, oh man, what did we just get ourselves into?
Yeah. And Buzz gets like smacked around and then like tossed onto the windowsill. And that's when he looks over and sees how perfectly peaceful it is on the other side.
Yeah, exactly. And then in a very, very strange turn of events, there's like this illegal poker game going on with the toys.
Incredible.
And Lotso is
Run by
not as nice as he let on at the beginning, basically. And that character, in a sense, goes through a lot too. And we learn a lot about Lotso because he's portrayed this one way when Andy's toys meet him. And then you sort of backtrack and go back through his past and how he forced the other toys to go with him when they were lost or left behind, basically, by mistake. And, because he was replaced, he just has this hatred towards so many kids and their toys now, even though he's putting on this facade that, oh, everything here is great. Really, he's in charge and he's mean to everyone and everyone has to do what he says. Otherwise, things don't go so well, which we see happens with Buzz and Jessie and all the rest of Andy's toys until Woody comes up with this plan to get everyone out. And it's kind of cynical, Lotso's character.
Yeah, when they give you like his backstory, like it's interesting because you get his backstory after already seeing like how evil he can be. So it's like I feel like the backstory, it's this attempt of attempt of like trying to make you sympathize with him. And like, I feel like while you're watching that flashback, you start to get those feelings naturally because of like how it's, you know, filmed and everything. But then when it snaps back, you're just like, oh wait, no, I don't like you. Like I don't care that you went through this. Like you're really bad.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to feel bad for the characters in this. And, you know, initially in the first movie, Sid was that character. It's like, well, you know, we don't really feel bad for him. We feel bad for his toys, but not for him. And funny enough,
he landed on his feet though.
Sid makes an appearance in this as a garbage man.
Yeah.
And he's
still wearing the same
toys.
shirt. Now he can use the garbage truck to crush any toys that might freak him out.
Or he ties them to the front and then they just like get bugs and everything in them.
Oh, it's too good.
Yeah, there are some really funny moments in this, which I think help with how dark the story kind of goes.
This is definitely it's a few decent steps into the more serious and darker tone than the previous two. Like I feel like the previous two, they had little bits of those things, like when they were in Sid's room. Or in the second one, a lot of the stuff with not Pistol Pete, that's Parks and Rec, Stinky Pete. And but then this one, it's on a whole other level. Like when Lotso's got them, you know, trapped in the cages, and they've brainwashed Buzz into his factory settings, and he's like patrolling them, and everything is and that monkey is so freaky.
Yeah. It reminded me of the monkey on the cover of my copy of Skeleton Crew by Stephen King, because there's the short story, The Monkey, and that's what it's based off of. And I was like, wow, that looks exactly like that monkey from that short story.
Horrifying.
Yeah. And I want to backtrack a little because the beginning gives us a flashback with Andy playing with all of the toys. And it
best opening ever.
It sets you up because you're like, wow, this is sort of a wild opening. And then you find out that the mom had been filming when he was younger, and so they have record of all of these stories he made up with his toys, and now he's 17 going off to college, and his mom is a little mean about it, I think, because she makes him pack up his entire room like he's never coming back.
Yeah. I was like, I was like,
oh.
I know he's going to college, but like I went to college, I still came home, like
and you still had a bedroom. Yeah. So aside from that, it was just like, okay, you know, they're really setting us up for the emotional stakes in this one too, because it's like, oh, Andy's not going to come back. We can't just sit on the shelf. We have to go either in the attic or out for a yard sale or what have you. And, you know, the soldiers go AWOL, which I thought was really funny. They're like, oh see ya.
Yeah. Our mission has ended.
Yeah. And then,
we're the first to end up in the trash.
And then you find out that Bo Peep is gone. I assume through some yard sale or something like that. They didn't really specify, but we know that there's no Bo Peep in this one.
Yeah.
And because of how many toys they add, I wouldn't really say you necessarily miss Bo Peep in this, because she was there, but she was always this sort of like weird love interest for Woody until Jessie came along, and then Jessie's like a love interest for Buzz now. And anyway, toys and love interests is a weird thing.
Yeah. And Bo Peep doesn't really even have a presence in the second one. So
right.
I feel like it's not like we've had this connection with her throughout the entire franchise. She kind of popped in, I think, in like one moment in the second one. But at least according to the previews, we're going to have stuff with her in the next one. Maybe cut that if that's spoilers.
I think because of how many toys there are and how big of a role the new toys play, you know, Barbie obviously gets a bit more screen time in this one. And then you have the whole thing with Barbie and Ken, which I guess that relationship as far as toys go is the most understandable, because that's sort of how it was displayed and advertised in the stores.
Yeah. And they handle that so well.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Ken was hilarious in this. And
Michael
when he
Keaton.
tries on, when he tries on all of the different outfits for Barbie.
Incredible.
That was just such a perfect use of that character.
Yeah. It's absolutely hilarious. And how they do that scene just with the music and the the lights, that it's like none of it makes sense and it doesn't matter. It's just absolutely hilarious. And the way he like poses like at the end, and it's in kind of slow motion. And both of them just do such a great job. And I think when I was looking at, I think the one who plays Barbie, I think is the one who did the voice of the Little Mermaid.
Yes, I believe so. Jodie Benson. That sounds right.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Her picture is of Little Mermaid on IMDb, so we're going with it.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sure if my sister's listening to this one that she'd be the one shouting at the speaker saying, "Of course it's the Little Mermaid."
Yeah, and going back to how we learn more about Lotso, that actually comes from Bonnie's other toys at home that aren't at the daycare. And Chuckles is one of the toys we really learn Lotso's background from, which, kind of a slightly creepy looking clown toy, but that's fine. And
he weirdly he weirdly freaks me out, but he's so endearing at the same time.
Yeah. And it gives us the Pizza Planet truck cameo in that flashback to what was going on with the toys and Lotso and everything. And it was so quick. And I was like, oh, got to make note of that because that's where that happened. And, Pizza Planet played such a big role in the first one that it's kind of nice they keep going back and just putting the truck in, even if you aren't going directly to Pizza Planet or anything like that, despite it being such a cool place, and the way that they just call back to things from the previous movies is really nice, so that those of us who watch all of them sort of get this little extra flavor for the movie, I guess you could say.
Yeah, you get the little bits of Easter eggs that remind you of just everything that does exist in this universe of Toy Story, that it just adds that extra bit of interconnectivity between all the movies that just makes everything feel so fleshed out and natural. Yeah,
exactly. Well, is there anything in specific that you want to discuss with Lotso's story? Because, like I said earlier, there is a lot, which probably why he's named Lotso. But
yeah. Oh, I didn't catch that.
I don't know if that's why, but
but I like it.
He's in it quite a bit, and I think one of the main things to note, though, with him is the fact that the other toys try to save him, kind of like No Toy Left Behind, and then he turns around and just abandons them when they're going into this giant fiery pit of whatever.
Yeah, so terrifying. Yeah, they help him up, because Woody, it's one of the things that we love about Woody. Like, there's no logical reason for Woody to look down at Lotso and say, "Oh, let me save you." But Woody, he's a heart of gold, and he's a good guy. He's the cowboy. He's the hero. He has to save him. It's like Batman. He can't let them. Yeah, he's not like Christian Bale Batman, where he says, "I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you." And so he risks that, and he helps him, thinking, "No, we can turn him around. We're all in this massive peril." Like, I'm sure he's had a change of heart and thought about the life that he lived, but he doesn't. He climbs up and has that last line of saying, "Where's your kid now?" It's so vindictive. I'm just like, no, I was so angry when he did it.
Yeah. And Woody is the kind of character who never really gives up on anyone. And that really shows throughout this movie. You have all of these toys, Andy's toys, turning against him and being like, "No, we want to stay here. You're wrong, Woody." Again, like you said. And he still doesn't give up. And he is ultimately the main reason they're able to get out of toy jail, basically. And even when Buzz is taken and rebooted basically to his factory settings, so he thinks he's a space ranger again, and we get that annoying Buzz briefly, and then we get Spanish Buzz, which maybe went on a little too long, but it was still kind
hilarious.
Of fun. And the fact that they have someone else voice him too, so it's just like totally different. And then Jesse is like all infatuated with Buzz. I was just like, this is so wild. They do so many weird and yet fun things with these movies to just keep them entertaining, because you can't have now 4 Toy Story movies and have the story continue to be exactly the same as the first one. They keep some elements, like the whole Woody being on his own with his thoughts thing, and they take it and put them in different scenarios so that it doesn't feel like it's just overused.
Absolutely. No, they do a really nice job with each of the movies so far of like it ups the ante, but not like too much, except maybe the potential fiery death trap. That it's like that. I feel like that's the largest piece of danger that they've ever encountered. But at the same time, the way it plays out from like the way the movie builds up, it makes sense that they end up there. They went through the garbage. They're going to the dump, and then it's the incinerator, which I guess that's how dumps work. But it really does, like you said, just keep it interesting. And the characters continue to be endearing. The development of the characters continues to build. Like even though like that, the story of like everyone just not trusting Woody when he thinks he's right. They build upon that because it's, at the same time, Woody kind of ends up being right because of the place ends up, being, a terror. But at the same time, Woody is also kind of wrong in this one because it is time for them to move on and be someone else's toys. Not to jump ahead, but that's his big story arc is learning that, because initially he's going to go off to college and let all the rest of the toys go. But he realizes they all belong together, and he's meant to be a toy and meant to be something special for someone else. He'll always be special to Andy, but Andy doesn't need him, physically anymore. The memories and the nostalgia will be all Andy needs left.
Yeah, and you have that moment at the beginning where Andy goes to take just Woody off to college with him, because from what I can tell, it seems like Woody is the toy that has been in the family for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
The mom won't sell him in the yard sale, and that gives us the entire plot for one of the movies, basically, because then Woody is stolen because he is so sought out, and his TV show was in black and white. So that just goes to show you how long Woody's been around in comparison to the other toys. So there's even more of a sentimental value
definitely
with him. And, Andy does end up keeping a lot of the toys, and he goes to go put them in the attic. But because he helps his sister, his mom thinks the garbage bag is for, the trash or donation. And luckily she doesn't just throw them out. They at least get donated. And that gives Woody the opportunity to be the hero of the story again and have Buzz team up with him like we get to see in the other 2 movies. And it's still so fun. And that's super important when it comes to these movies, especially when adults are going to be watching them, even though you and I were kids when the other 2 came out pretty much.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, we're excited for Toy Story 4 because of how good the first 3 have been. And, we're not necessarily the target audience for a Toy Story 4 movie at this point in our lives, but yet we're still going to go see it. And you have the end of the story, too, where Woody really does figure out the best solution for this problem. And he's not going to abandon the rest of his friends. So instead of going off to college with Andy, he throws himself in the donation box that is going to go there. And he does the same thing later when the toys are going with Bonnie, basically. He's like, nope, we're all going to Bonnie's. We're going to stick together no matter what. And Bonnie is sort of the perfect kid to pass the toys onto, because the younger sister is still a little too old to maybe hold as much interest in the toys as Bonnie would. So I think that's a good way to just keep things going. It's like, okay, Andy's family clearly knows this family. They can tell she likes the toys and that she takes care of her toys. She doesn't go throwing them around like a maniac like the younger kids at the daycare do. And Andy even plays with her for a bit at the end, which is just so nice to see because, I would venture to say most 17-year-olds aren't going to sit around in a yard with a younger kid playing with their toys,
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where I would imagine at one point he maybe played with his sister a little bit, but for the most part, he probably wanted the sister to leave him alone, especially when she was younger and didn't understand what he was doing with his toys because he would come up with such elaborate stories and everything. So it was just really nice for that moment at the end to get to see Andy playing with the toys again.
Definitely. And we get the moment with Bonnie earlier when she first, has just found Woody when he gets caught in the tree and she finds him there. And the way that she plays with her toys is so similar to how Andy played. Like she's got these, wild scenarios with, the witch and everything. And then she's hiding in the toy box and she's holding Woody, and you get all these different vibes, and without it being flashbacks, you get your own personal flashbacks of watching Andy play with his toys. It's just so similar. And that scene has so many great moments. I mean, with Timothy Dalton as Mr. Pricklepants, completely blown away by Woody's commitment and asking him if he's classically trained. It's Woody knows that home and Bonnie is a good fit for him and all the other toys. So he knows this is the right thing to do, to be loyal and stay with his friends and stay with the toys, and as kind of their leader, ensure that they all end up in the best situation possible together. And then on Andy's side of it, as you were saying, we get that Andy recognizes that in Bonnie, that she is that perfect fit. And even when he reaches in and she goes, "Oh, my cowboy," and he kind of hesitates for that moment, and he's like, "Well, wait, I don't think I could get rid of this one," but he looks at her and he sees it in her eyes, and then he starts telling her about just how special Woody is, and that the great thing about Woody is that he never gives up on you. Mm-hmm. And it was this scene that really got me last night when I was watching it. It was the Inferno scene and everything, knowing that I'd seen it before. That scene didn't really get me because I knew they get out of it, even though the first time you watch it, of course they're not going to just set the toys on fire, but
right. That's not how they're going to go out.
Yeah, but you get emotionally invested in that scene. But I was sitting there and I'm like, I was like, that's weird. I was like, this scene I didn't get a reaction. I'm like, I guess I'm going to be okay. And then we get to this scene when he's sitting with Bonnie and just talking about how special these toys are and how, this will be their new home. And he's teaching her all about, Rex, and that he's the fiercest dinosaur, and Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head. You have to keep them together. That's when I'm just sitting there. I'm like, all right, I'm done. I'm done. This is amazing. This is absolutely incredible. And then they top it off with when he's driving off and Woody says, "So long, partner." And I'm just like, I hate you, Toy Story 3.
Making me feel things. How dare you? Yeah, I know what you mean, though, because it's this really touching moment between Andy and his toys, and then Bonnie by proxy, because she's the one who's going to benefit from having these toys passed on to her. And not having seen Toy Story 4 yet, I have no idea where that story is going to go, and if it will sort of just cap things off, or if they are just going to keep making Toy Story movies because they keep making them so well, or what. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, I'm really excited that both of us are going into Toy Story 4 having no idea what's coming.
I don't think I've even watched any of the trailers or teasers or anything. I
saw the early teaser, and then I think maybe I saw either the first trailer or just maybe some random clips, but I've actually avoided it pretty well. And a lot of the movies that I've been going to see lately have not been ones that Toy Story 4 is playing before.
Yeah, I don't think that trailer will show before Child's Play, but
no.
For me, I think I've really only seen some of the posters, so I know what some of the new characters are going to look like and everything. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I like going into it having no idea what's going to happen. And I think, if you look at what they've accomplished as a whole, it's like they just keep making them so consistent and so fun that it would be weird to not have Toy Story movies. Like what happens when they stop making Toy Story movies? Sure, they've taken long breaks, like between 2 and 3 here. There was over 10 years of a gap there. So, they aren't afraid to take their time with it. And that's what I like, because even 2010 to, the new one now in 2019, that's a pretty big gap too. And I think if there isn't anything else that you want to discuss story-wise, maybe we jump into the credit scenes quickly here.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the only thing is that, well, I do want to shout out to the prison break scene.
Yes. Okay.
That is such a great scene. And I was cracking up when, first of all, I had the chatter phone toy. And I'm pretty sure I had the bookworm. I'd have to ask my mom, but I'm pretty sure I had the bookworm. I have no idea what he's from. But when that phone rings and Woody picks it up, and the way the phone is like detailing, all the different guards and everything, I got such Mission Impossible vibes from that. Even just like the way he talks felt like the mission narrator, like in the beginning of Fallout. I was just enjoying that so much, and the way they perfectly set up everything that's going to happen. It also almost feels like you're getting ready to play like a level in a video game, and it's just like, here's like the whole outline of everything you're going to have to accomplish in this level.
Yeah.
And I also may have been thinking about that because I've been playing a lot of the Toy Story 2 game on PlayStation. It still holds up.
Nice.
Fantastic. But that scene is just it's so much fun, and it's stylish, and it's cool, and clever. So that was something that I felt like really stood out in this movie that they did uniquely.
Yeah, I totally agree. And with the credits scene, it was nice to get the Sunnyside update, which is the daycare, without really needing to dive into it too much. They didn't need to make those full-on scenes in the movie. Just putting that in the credits scene there, instead of having like a ton of bloopers or something, which, don't get me wrong, were equally as fun. But I think the update to Sunnyside, just to see how the daycare was prospering in Lotso's absence, was really funny, and just such a clever way to use those credit scenes.
Yeah, tied up it like, because like we were saying, it'd be weird for them to not have like Toy Story movies. Toy Story 3, that scene when they're just sitting on the front porch is such a perfect ending that I honestly never would have expected them to do another one, because it feels so much like a perfect ending. Now, knowing that they've made 3 great ones, I'm not concerned about a 4th one, because I'm like, they wouldn't make a 4th one if they didn't feel they had a worthy story to tell.
Yeah.
But even with that fantastic ending, just on the porch, having this little bit in the credits, it's a perfect just little coda, because it ties up all those loose ends on, well, what happened to all the other toys. And it's great to see that, those ones that were working under Lotso and were kind of, jerk toys. I love that when you first see one of them getting like tossed around in the caterpillar room, you kind of get this brief feeling of, oh, well, are the bad toys just being punished? Like they're relegated to that room. But then when you see that when he goes under, it's like a tag team, and it's like, no, it's like no one's being punished. They're all just working together so that they can all, survive the insane toddlers. And it's just such a great moment. It's so heartwarming. I agree. Like it's such a great way to to end it. I think while bloopers are super fun, I think they might have taken away from that great, sentimental ending, but this just added to it without taking anything away.
Yeah, I agree with you that it sort of felt like the perfect ending, and then the credit scenes were just a little extra update there on how the toys are doing and things like that. That didn't really feel like, oh, the story needs to continue because of these credit scenes, which is basically what Marvel does with their credit scenes. It's like, okay, here's a little taste of, what's coming up. And to have that sort of definite ending there, but yet still choose to make a Toy Story 4, I'm in total agreement with you that I don't think they would have done it unless they felt like they had a good enough story. And based on the reviews I'm seeing of Toy Story 4, they clearly do, but we don't want to dive into that too much. So let's go ahead and quickly talk about the budget and the box office for this one, because the budget on this one was $200 million. And obviously 2010, you have a lot more money to work with and inflation and things like that. So you typically are spending more money on movies these days, especially one that had so much going into it like Toy Story 3 did. And it made over $1 billion worldwide. That's a huge number for an animated movie.
Absolutely. That's wild.
Yeah. It made $415 million and change in the United States, and then almost 652 million overseas. So you have just so many people in so many different countries who are absolutely loving these stories that Pixar has given us. And, obviously it helps when parents are going with their kids. It's not like parents are going to go see Toy Story without their kids necessarily. So you're getting so many more ticket sales just because entire families go see these movies. You're not going to let your children go to the movies by themselves or anything. So, they work that to their advantage when Pixar releases movies. And then there's still people like you and I who will happily go, not with younger children.
Yeah. I'm just seeing it was, it's the third highest grossing animated film of all time. It was the first Pixar film to be released in IMAX theaters, and it was the highest grossing movie of 2010, which is really crazy that an animated movie is the highest in a year.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, Toy Story 4 has some competition with Avengers Endgame, so I don't think it's going to quite beat that out. But
I think Avengers Endgame just ruined it for everything.
Yeah, Endgame ruined everything and everyone.
Yep.
Until Star Wars comes.
Yeah.
And that will probably be even more ruined.
I know. Will definitely be interesting to see how that holds to Avengers.
Yeah.
And to your point when you were saying just how well it did, overseas and everything. I think even though, it seems pretty clear this is a movie that takes place in the US, but
it could be any kid with any toys.
Yeah, like it's just such a universal story, and I feel like that's why that final scene with him and Bonnie just sitting there and him passing on his toys. Like I feel like any kid that's grown up has had some similar experience that they're connecting with that, whether it's passing it on to a sibling, whether it's donating your toys and just knowing they're going to a good place, but even just all the stories within the toys themselves, the stories of friendship and sticking together. It's all those things are universal. It's what makes these movies so special.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that this one did so well, it gives me a lot of hope for the one in theaters now, because you just have so many people who are wanting to see how things play out, especially since Toy Story 3 did give you this option to just end the series there. And for me, going into Toy Story 4 and not knowing anything, but knowing how Toy Story 3 ended, I think it makes me that much more excited for it. And Toy Story 3, I think, hit more on the emotional beats than the other ones did, just because of how real it is to be going off to college and leaving so many things behind. And,
Definitely.
I don't know if I necessarily had that many toys, so to speak, that I still had in my room when I went off to college, but it's still a feeling that I think a lot of people who are leaving their home and going to college would be able to resonate with. And, there's just so many good things going on in Toy Story 3. I'm pretty sure I gave it a 5 out of 5, which is, half a star above Toy Story 2 for me. And I think it's just because of how well this one handled that story. And there's so much going on in it that you're just like paying attention to it constantly and never feeling bored.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everything about it is so captivating. I mean, it even from, putting it on last night and that opening with just the big Western opening, like it, which apparently was an idea that was originally for the first movie, but they cut it and they just had Andy describe it himself. But I had completely forgotten about that opening, and I'm sitting there and I'm so captive, even though I know, well, clearly this is, fantasy, or in some, it's like in the second one when it's the, Buzz Lightyear going after Zurg. It's like, well, clearly this isn't, what Buzz Lightyear, the toy, is really going through. But I'm still so captivated in everything that's happening in that moment. And then I'm cracking up because the lines are mimicking, what Andy said in that first one. So it's already tying you back to that, where it's like, well, I got my dinosaur who eats force field dogs. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is fantastic. And it's like, so to start so strong, and then when it pans and it's got, that it's Andy's mom, filming it already.
Yeah.
My emotions are at like a certain level that I'm just like, oh, that was really great. And then it builds on that more and more and more. This definitely took everything that was great about the first one and everything that was great about the second one, and then rounded it out into this, just really stand out emotional story that I feel like this definitely transcends being, a kid's movie. This is definitely along the lines of, yes, it's an animated movie, but this is a movie for everybody. And I think the other ones obviously had those elements as well. But this one I feel like it takes it to a whole other level. And I think that shows, and that I think this was, pretty sure this was nominated for Best Picture, not even just Best Animated Movie.
Yeah. And clearly we are in agreement of just how well they've done with bringing Toy Story back time and time again. So I'm really looking forward to talking about the fourth one with you, Tim. And thank you so much for coming on to talk about these first three so far. It's been really fun just diving back into these, and especially watching Toy Story 3 for the first time. Yeah,
this has been a ton of fun, and I've been happy to join you on this journey. And I too can't wait for 4, especially watching Toy Story 3 last night. I'm like, all right, I'm good. I'm ready.
Well, hopefully the listeners won't have to wait on us too much longer to get the Toy Story 4 episode out here. But, to our listeners, you can follow at Geekdom Pod if you want to keep up with when the episodes are going to be released. Sometimes I tease that on Twitter. Sometimes I don't. It just depends on if I remember, honestly. And then we are Welcome to Geekdom on Instagram and on Facebook. So check us out there as well, whatever your platform of choice is. And as always, thank you all for listening, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.